you're famously known for being able to help people see their comedic character in, you know, in just a short amount of time. And obviously these are the steps. And first of all, congratulations on your new book. It's How to Kill in Comedy. The reviews look great. There you go. It's right there. How to Kill in Comedy. It's such a pretty cover too. You were talking about the 4 parts to someone's comedic character. Can you go over those again, what those 4 parts are and how those break down to really who you are as a person and as a comedian and how you marry that? I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah. Well, let's take a couple of real comedians. Like, let's take Anthony Jeselnik. So his flaw is that he's insulting. That's and he's cutting. He's insensitive. Part 2 of comedic character is probably the most important. It's called blind spot. And it means that the character doesn't understand what's wrong with them. So frequently your blind spot is the opposite of your flaw. So in Anthony Jeselnik's case, his blind spot is that he thinks he's charming and wonderful. And you can always tell by the way somebody says something. So the blind spot's probably the most magical part of the comedic character. Even in sitcom characters like Sheldon Cooper on The Big Bang Theory, right? His flaw is that he's basically a nerd, but you will never hear him say that. He will act as if he is the coolest guy that ever walked. Amy Schumer, her flaw is that, she's amoral. I don't want to say, not only sexually, but she's just an amoral character. But her blind spot is she thinks she's pure as the driven snow. So it's really the first interaction between the flaw and the blind spot that are the first things that you have to kind of grab. I can go over some others if you want. Billy Burr, who is rough-edged and politically incorrect. His blind spot is that he thinks he's totally politically correct and reserved. And you find this with everybody, all the way back to the ultimate comedic character, Rodney Dangerfield, whose flaw was that he was an obnoxious old man, well, a young man too, when he was a young man. His blind spot was that he thought he deserved respect. So, and every time he would present you the evidence, I tell you, I got no respect. And he would tell you what he did in a particular situation, thinking that you would go, oh yeah, you deserve respect. And all you do is laugh at him because everything he did was obnoxious.
It's like it's the opposite of the space that someone's taking up. I get it. It's, if I see the no respect and then he tells you he's not getting respect and then proves it to you.
It proves that he doesn't deserve respect. That's
right. Yeah. Which, I mean, and I see it with all your examples. It really is. It's interesting to how clearly you can say that when it takes everyone else 20, 30 years, right? I mean, Rodney Dangerfield didn't see that character until later on, 20 years into his comedy career, right? So
that's right. And, George Carlin, he was pretty successful as a comic for a while. It wasn't until the Aspen Comedy Festival in like 1993 that he said to Barb and I, I'm not in my own act. And that's when he really got his comedic character, the angry guy who, he would say things like, we need to kill women with 2 last names. And once he got a hold of his comedic character, his flaw and his blind spot, he probably did more hours of original comedy than anyone in history. He did like 10 or 15 hour-long HBO specials that all came from his character. Think about Lewis Black, who spent a lot of years not getting laughs. And And literally, we were with him, I think, in Chicago, and I don't remember when it was, but and I may not be remembering all this correctly, but one night, instead of doing his usual political stuff, he was talking about George W. Bush, and he had always been met with, you know, half the room would agree, half the room would disagree, but not a lot of laughs. He was sick or something, and all of a sudden he found himself doing, and when I hear George W. talk, it hurts my brain, it hurts my head. And everybody started laughing because now that was his comedic character talking. And from that point on, he became, you know, a big star. Kevin Hart, look at him. His flaw is that everything upsets him and he's too sensitive because everything he complains about is not that big of a deal. But ask him that because he's going, oh, it was terrible and this happened and put a paper clip in my blah. And so it's just that everybody who's ever made it has these parts to their comedic character. So that's what I've been teaching.
Lynn's son in the one of our audience asks, what do you think is Wanda Sykes' flaw and blind spot?
She's too honest. I don't want to say too honest. She's rude. She says what people are thinking, but she would never say in front of a person. And yet her attitude is, look what a nice person I am. She's saying very insulting things if you look at it. And, you know, the negative words that are your flaw, some people, it's kind of hard to look at it, but the more you can look at those negative words, the better you can write comedy. I suppose most everybody remembers I Love Lucy, right?
Yeah, I've heard of her.
So, yeah, so if you ask people, well, what was her flaw? What are we laughing at? They'll say things like, oh, she's a little ditzy, she forgets things, blah, blah, blah. If you tried to write jokes for her, you wouldn't come up with anything from that. But if you said to yourself, Lucy is a liar and Lucy is a cheat, then every laugh she ever got, you could write it. So if you don't believe me, if she breaks Ricky's guitar, is she going to tell him yes or no? No.
Yeah.
A lie. And having broken Ricky's guitar, is she going to take it to a legitimate guitar repair shop? No. She's going to glue it together or substitute the guitar. And of course, the whole thing's going to end up with a disaster, with the guitar breaking apart or something. So if what she does is that she's a liar and a cheat, why don't we hate her? The answer is the blind spot. The blind spot gives every comedic character innocence. Her blind spot is she thinks she's saving people from pain. That's why she's not telling them that she broke the guitar or any of that stuff. So a lot of people kind of get afraid when they first get in touch with their comedic character's flaw of, oh, well, people are going to think I'm a terrible person. That is assuming that's your true comedic character, that you're nasty or you're hostile. If you're a Steve Martin kind of character, then you're just an idiot, not nasty or mean. And what they don't understand. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I kind of see it as when you see a ventriloquist and they're playing they're playing both sides with their dummy.
Yeah.
So that they look nice and the dummy looks like an asshole.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I've coached 15 or 20 ventriloquists over the years. And in almost every case, they became comedians. They were just using the dummy to vent their true comedic character. And they were afraid to show people who they were. And so they let their dummy do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't be a ventriloquist if you're good at that. But it's just interesting the way some people hide their true self.